My kingdom for a quarterback. You know what? I asked for a quarterback. I got one. I'm Tank Tantlinger. He is the former NFL quarterback, Mike McMahon. AFC Championship, NFC Championship weekend, Mike. But before we get to that, your Pittsburgh Steelers went out and got a quarterback. Do you know anything about quarterbacking, throwing a football?
It's a little bit more than throwing a football, but the guy they got can throw the ball.
Dwayne Haskins.
It's just can he do the other stuff that a quarterback not is expected to do, but needs to do and has to do to become a leader in the locker room.
Leadership. You know what? You can have an arm and throw the ball all over the place. Certainly he did that at Ohio State. We'll talk about his career at Ohio State. We'll talk about his brief career. And that's the thing, kitty cats. $14 million the Washington Football Club decides to offer him. A football coach named Ron Rivera, one guy who you and I both respect, said, nah, First of all, Ohio State, Mike. He was successful at Ohio State, but you and I were talking a little bit. Those athletic wide receivers they get at Ohio State helped him.
Yeah, and the Ohio State quarterbacks I haven't typically been a fan of because I haven't seen too many translate to the NFL level. You look at Terrell Pryor, he turns into a receiver. You have R.J. Barrett, he's a backup somewhere. If he's still playing, he played in the those other leagues. Cardell Jones left early. He's out of the NFL right now.
Art Schleister. For other reasons, for you kids from the 70s.
And then you look at, everyone's talking about Justin Fields right now. And, I necessarily wasn't sure if I'd go after him. He was at Georgia. He wasn't starting. He got beat out. And he decided to transfer. And is that the type of guy you want that is like, hey, he didn't win those jobs somewhere, so he's going to go elsewhere? I'm not sure that's the attitude. Now, Ohio State is a great football team, great coaching staff. They got great players.
Great program.
And the problem is they have these such great athletes at receivers and running back that they don't need a quarterback that has to pinpoint the football right on like 1 foot in front of the numbers or right on the numbers. A little back pad. You don't have to throw your receiver open so much when you play at Ohio State because the athletes are so good. They're open. What they like is when they finally are covered, they need a guy that's going to take off and run and make plays that way. Look at the one guy that's been successful probably in the past 20 years. The only one from Ohio State with some success is Joe Burrow. And he didn't start at LSU. And he didn't fit their program. They wanted a guy that can run around and make more plays. So to me, the Ohio State quarterbacks are a little, I didn't like Dwayne Haskins coming out, mainly because of the R.J. Barrett and the Cardell Jones reasoning. I didn't know much about him as a player or as a leader, but now you see it start coming out, as a rookie. This was his, I believe it's his second year, and he was named a starter coming in.
Right. This was the year they were supposed to rebuild the Washington football team.
So for whatever reason, he struggled, and a lot of rookies struggle with decision making and learning the playbook, and this is his second coaching staff.
Well, you talked about something before, okay, with the quality of talent at Ohio State, separation with a wide receiver, and you know this because you played with T.O., you threw to AB once. And separation at the pro level, at the college level, you may have a 4-yard separation because the guy outright smoked the other guy.
Well, there's a lot of guys.
At the pro level, it's not that much, right?
Coming out, I think at Josh Heupel was a Heisman Trophy guy coming out of college from Oklahoma, and he didn't really do much in the NFL. And then we had Joey Harrington. He was also a guy that was up for the Heisman. And when he came to Detroit, we'd be watching film, and the coach would say, Joey, why didn't you throw it there? And he said, well, he's covered. And he's like, no, he's got a half a step. He's open. You got to throw him open. You got to get rid of that football. And he struggled making those down the field throws. Myself, on the other hand, I came from Rutgers, and I was running around for my life, and I was used to throwing the ball when guys weren't covered, so, I threw a little too many interceptions. Now, I'm not proud of that, but I pulled the trigger a little bit more, it's just so. But it's a tough decision-making process for young rookies to come in the league, and, the main thing is you have to learn to take care of the football and keep your football team in good situations. Well, you look at the Washington football team this past year, they had a pretty solid defense. They needed someone that can kind of just be the game manager. Eventually, Alex Smith comes in. They bench Dwayne Haskins. He goes from first to third. Not second, but to third. All of a sudden, he has a illness, and he misses 2 weeks of practice. Now, it wasn't COVID. He wasn't put on the COVID list, but there was an illness. What was that illness?
Maturity.
It could be a little bit of an emotional maturity issue. I feel sorry for myself. Remember when he got drafted?
Yep.
The league done messed up because he didn't get drafted by the Giants. They drafted Daniel Jones ahead of him, a couple other guys ahead of him. So he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, which is fine.
He had a $14 million chip.
But as long as you are mature enough to handle that and understand what you got to do for your football team. Now, Alex Smith gets hurt last season. Here comes
Hurt. He
Dwayne
got run
Haskins.
over by a tractor trailer.
Dwayne Haskins comes back in, has 4 or 5 turnovers, and they still have a chance to win the game at the end, but they end up losing. What does he do? Does he go home and watch film, knowing there's a good chance that is Alex Smith back next week, or is he going to play? I could still be playing. He's out at the strip club during a pandemic with the mask. Like, look, I get it. You want to go out and go to the club, whatever type of club you want. But there's a perception at this point, and especially with what our country was going through with the pandemic and the way the NFL is trying to tiptoe through these testing, and it's really a fine line. They're jumping through hoops to get the season to be played.
What's the old adage? Are you a role model or aren't you?
Well, and I get it. He's a young kid, makes mistakes, but this is not the time. That was a really poor decision. He's out without a mask, has a picture taken of him. So what do they bring him back in. He has to issue an apology. They get stripped of his captaincy from the team.
Dude, that hurts.
And now he's going to go back out there and play. And so you think you're going to be on, this is my game. I have to perform well. If I don't, I'm really hitting the fence, the edge line here. And sure enough, he went out, had a couple turnovers, got pulled from the game, and he got released. Ron Rivera just didn't have time for it. He did not draft him. It was the regime before him. And, obviously, when you draft a guy that high, 15th pick of the draft,
yep,
and you're a first rounder as a quarterback, typically you get 3 or 4 years before they're gonna, hey, let's get rid of him. This is a disaster. This was in his second season, and he didn't even start a full season yet. So they didn't care about what his arm strength was, what his mobility was, what can he do for us physically. They immediately recognized the off the field issues, the lack of leadership, the character, and they said, we can't have it. We got to move forward, and we got to cut bait right now. That's a big statement, cutting your number 1 draft choice, a following season. And so, now the Pittsburgh Steelers coming to pick him up.
Now, this is where we turn to you, Steelers Nation, because if you watch the show, Mike and I both are adamant when we have opinions about things. I'm conflicted this morning, okay? I was ready to call the kid a bum. What are you doing? The Steelers used to have a saying around the locker room and the front office: surround yourself with good people and good things happen. That was the mantra for the Steelers organization through many Super Bowls, through many years. I was going to tear into this kid this morning. However, he put a biblical scripture after he signed with the Steelers, so I'm going to back off of him a little bit. That's a personal thing. Mike, when you've got a team that is trying to figure out what the hell just happened in 2020 season, we were 11-0. We ended up on the scrap heaps. We're sterno bums in an alley while everybody else is playing. Is this the right message to send to your team? And the fact that Coach Tomlin's agent is also Haskins' agent, I wonder.
Well, you can weigh the positives and the negatives here, and you can look at the Steelers and say, Haskins did fire his agent. He did hire the same agent as Mike Tomlin, and I'm sure his agent spoke to Coach Mike Tomlin and was like, hey, give this kid a second chance. He needs a role model. He needs some help. And maybe, I'm not sure what the deal is. I know it's a 1-year deal. I'm not sure what kind of money it is. Maybe the Steelers say, look, we can bring him in. We can mentor this young man. We can get him back on the right track. Maybe that's what they're thinking at a very minimal cost. And then we can see how he does and we can re-sign him or not. You mentioned a biblical scripture, and that's the reason why you decide not to go off.
I backed off. I was going to call him a punk and a bum. Because that's what, when you
but-
get $14 million, Mike,
You know-
$14 million, and things aren't going your way, the heart of a champion, like this new coach up in Detroit, we're going to bite you, kick you on the way back up. You fight, you find out if you have the heart of a champion.
Well, here's the thing
he
with
did not
Haskins.
act like a champion, he acted like a bum, a punk.
And you're 100% right, and I get it, you know, and I'm a Christian myself, and you know, we all deserve second chances. We all make mistakes.
Yep.
But it's to me, the world we live in, just because you say it, just because you tweet it, just because you write it down,
Actions speak
doesn't
louder than
mean
words.
it.
Actions.
You have to change the actions. And until I see it, you know, I'm not so sure this was the best move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the reason being is, I don't believe the Pittsburgh locker room is the same now as it was when Coach Tomlin first came in. The locker room that he took over.
Inherited,
exactly.
From Coach Cowher?
The locker room.
Yeah, we all say he inherited.
He inherited the locker room from Coach Cowher, and you had some key players in that locker room, true leadership. You know, Hines Ward, Troy Polamalu. You had some key players in there, and
James Harrison.
And it ran itself. And now a lot of those guys are gone, and you saw what happened with Antonio Brown. And he
exactly,
and so and then
Lev Bell,
and then
now Juju,
and then you see the Juju, and even he's a great player and he's a phenomenal athlete, and I just hope he keeps his mouth shut going forward. As Chase Claypool, he's starting to go down that road as well. Whether you don't like the Browns making fun of Juju or not, that's the world you live in. Juju brought it on himself. You don't have to be mad. Like, hey, Juju started it. The Browns finished it, Chase.
And so did
you
Cincinnati.
Keep your mouth shut. And
so
football.
did the Bills when Juju ran his mouth.
So this is not the most mature locker room
Nope.
that the Steelers have ever had.
No.
And quite frankly, it's probably one of the more immature locker rooms, and I don't see a lot of leadership inside that locker room at this point. So I don't know how that's going to help the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if this team, if Dwayne Haskins can help this team take the next step as much as the Pittsburgh Steelers helping Dwayne Haskins. And
well, this is a futures.
There.
It's a futures contract, which means nothing lost, nothing gained. Those of you that are out there saying down at the corner of the bar, going, "Ben's done. This Haskins going to replace him." I'll talk adamantly about skill level now. This kid is not everything he was signed at, what I saw on tape. He's not worth $14 million. He's not the answer to your Super Bowl blues this year's Kitty Cats. There's a reason he's here. He's a good third-string quarterback right now to replace Duck. That's it. Don't get your hopes up that this kid is going to take you to the Super Bowl in Ottawa next year.
Yeah, and you look at, Ben Roethlisberger at the point in his career, can he help mentor a young player? And Ben's been better in the past, or most recently, but in the past he had a little bit of a rocky off the field, some issues, and then you see him on the field. And so is Ben the guy that's going to mentor this young man, like, hey, if it's not downfield, take the check down? I think Alex Smith is definitely a much better player for him to watch, because Ben's a little bit more of a cavalier type quarterback. He's going to take those chances down the field.
I don't want Ben mentoring the kid. I don't need that. What I need is Ben Roethlisberger getting back to Ben now that Fiechner's out here instead of dinky dink for 2 yards.
And that's the thing.
I need a Super Bowl in 2021 from Ben Roethlisberger.
And you have to look at the offensive coordinator that's going to come in. Now, they interviewed Hugh Jackson recently. They've talked about Pep Hamilton recently.
Maybe.
You have to bring a guy in that is going to stand up for himself and tell Ben, hey, you're the player. You play. I'm the coach. I'll coach. Don't change the plays in the huddle. And as far as Haskins go, it is a future contract. You got to talk to him. Say, look, one mistake and you're done. You're gone. And I don't know how long he will be in Pittsburgh. I really don't.
Time is going to find out. So is Haskins a bum and a punk, or is he going to correct the ship? And I hope he does, because America is the land of opportunity and second chances.
And the one thing about the NFL is when it comes, you mentioned the athletic ability and the strong arm. It doesn't matter how strong your arm is, how athletic you are, if you bring more problems to the team than solutions. And you can look back at Ryan Leaf. You can look back at
Isn't he in jail now?
Jamarcus Russell,
Oh,
a cannon of an arm,
big man.
very mobile.
Yep.
Again, when these guys bring these off the field issues and problems, it brings issues to the locker room. And quite frankly, when you're in the middle of a season, there's a lot of stuff going on. The last thing you need is something from off the field coming in causing issues. So again, can Dwayne Haskins turn it around? He's going to have to prove it. His words, he's saying he's going to, but I don't know if this is the locker room that's going to help him do it.
All right, we're going to find out about young Mr. Haskins. Hopefully, Latrobe Training Camp gets here as soon as possible because I'm freezing my tuchus off here in Carnegie, PA today. Hey, Tank Tantlinger here with Pittsburgh Sports Talk. Hey, you know, I've written my new book, Harry Greb, Pittsburgh's First Sports Superstar. Harry Greb, Pittsburgh's First Sports Superstar. Go to the website, www.harrygrebpittsburgh.com, harrygrebpittsburgh.com to get your copy. Well, you know what? My autograph's $15. The book is free if you get online to harrygrebpittsburgh.com and order it. And if you say you don't know who Harry Greb is, then you are no sports fan of the city of Pittsburgh or the black and gold. So watch this.